Hi, everybody. This is Lori, and this is our podcast, Inclusivi-TEA podcast. And my co-host is Leah, who is not here today. And we are partners with Black Iowa News and Alliance for Sustainability. And our message on the podcast and in Black Iowa News and in Alliance for Sustainability and in our Facebook group, Inclusivi-TEA Collaborative, our message is all about inclusion and creating a world and an earth where we can thrive, where everyone can thrive. So taking care of the earth, taking care of each other. And I'm really happy today because our guest today is a really good friend of mine, T. Michael Rock, who is also the pastor of the United Church of Christ Church in Minnesota, Robbinsdale Parkway United Church of Christ. And I asked T. Michael to come on because I was in church last Sunday and he talked a lot about an inclusive message of God and who's accepted into that inclusive message. And I think it fits beautifully with what we're trying to do here and as far as equity and justice and taking care of everyone. So T. Michael, thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Lori. It's great to talk with you.
Well, it's always lovely to talk with you as well. So T. Michael, tell us a little bit about your history and sort of how you got to where you are. And then I want to ask you some questions about sort of how your faith kind of plays into this whole inclusion message.
Thanks a lot, Lori. I am just so privileged and blessed to have been around good people and people that have just broadened my horizons and broadened my understanding. People of all different faiths and no faith have really inspired me in my life. And so it just makes my images of the divine so much bigger than I could ever have learned in Sunday school or in any one denominational experience or any one church. And so I'm just really blessed by having good mentors and good guides in my life, just really beautiful people. So, and Sunday, do you want me to start with that one? I mean, I had this wonderful nun who was the chaplain of my college who took us on a trip to the Gethsemane Seminary or Gethsemane Monastery in Kentucky, where Thomas Merton worked and lived for many, many years. And it was just beautiful, holy ground. It was, and she was so good at ritual, and I was never Catholic, but this Catholic nun was super important for me. And we literally took our shoes off to walk into the Hermitage, like that kind of holy ground experience. And we read excerpts from books from Thomas Merton. We sat in silence together and kind of felt his spirit in that place. And for those of you who don't know Merton, he was a Trappist monk who was vehemently opposed to the Vietnam War and was super instrumental in writing pieces on nonviolence and care of the earth and sustainability and all kinds of things long before it was popular. It's just a beautiful soul. And one of those pieces that just really inspired me was his transformation experience became mine. And that's what happens when we tell stories, is like, wow, that story inspires me and I want to live my life in this way. And he just talked about walking down this busy street in Louisville one day on the corner of 4th and Walnut. And there was a lot of people, just the streets were crowded with people. And he had this sudden realization that everybody in that mass of people was a beacon of light. Everybody was divine. Every soul was sacred, and it changed his life. And it brought me back to this understanding that the scriptures in many traditions include the word all, like all people, from aimlessness and sin, or all people are reconciled to God, and we failed at the all people. And so when people say all lives matter, well, that's a great aspirational thing, but often people are not included in that all. And so we have to say Black Lives Matter or Indigenous Lives Matter or whatever people have been excluded from the all. We just have to take that on to say we have to heal the exclusion, and or all doesn't matter. And so that's kind of, it's moved me in my life to kind of see every soul as this beacon of light, and every soul is sacred and worthy and whole, and in that there are all these hurting souls too. And so just deep compassion for all of these sacred beings in my life, and that includes people, but it also includes the trees and the crawly things and everything else on the planet.
So T. Michael, how do you incorporate that into your daily life, into your soul, as you kind of come upon obstacles, or someone vehemently disagrees with you in a way that you think is harmful? You think they're doing something harmful to the world. How do you continue to live that?
Sure. I think it's a spiritual practice. I mean, walking into places of conflict and seeing the sacredness, the big light of everyone's soul, even those people who disagree with me. And partly when you do that, you kind of see the brokenness, and it opens up a place of compassion. It doesn't lessen my love for who they are if they do things that are completely against my understanding of what humanity is about or what being on this planet is about. It doesn't decrease my sense of compassion. In fact, it may increase that experience. And so trying to meet that force. Yeah, I mean, I'm a long time nonviolent activist, and I spent a lot of time studying Gandhi and Dr. King, and that whole idea of meeting someone's negativity with soul force. The satyagraha, is like this wonderful thing that actually takes a relationship as what is primary, and not the argument itself. So if I'm against, if somebody who is deeply invested in firearms, which I am deeply invested in not having firearms anywhere there's no need for that, except outside the world of sustainability, and feeding people. But this idea that there are weapons of mass destruction in people's garages or basements is abhorrent to me. But meeting that fear with a sense of satyagraha, with that soul force, it takes away the fear, and then they don't need that AR-15 or whatever machine gun they have, or whatever they need to protect themselves, because there's no need to protect someone from this gentle, compassionate soul, right? And so if we put that out there first, it helps me kind of do that spiritual practice in all the relationships. And that's not just me. There's so many people in my life who I've come across that carry that force with them. And it's a disarming force. And so I think that's what we do. I practice the art of disarming. And it's something that we teach each other in our faith community, is how do we disarm those people who come at us with anger, with fear, with whatever.
Well, and I think one of the things that, one of the reasons this resonated with me so much right now is that with the things that have recently happened with the school shooting, and with the war that's going on, and with the continued feelings about George Floyd's murder, and all of that has made it, I think, very hard sometimes for people to see that love in other people, to see that light. And so you saying, stand in that crowded space and see that light, really resonated with me and made me realize, okay, when I'm feeling negative, I have to remember that that's what I do. Like, that is actually who I am. And it is important to me. But when I leave it, when I walk away from that, I am harmed, and I'm more harmful to the people around me.
Yeah.
When I get caught up in that. So if you had to give people like one sort of brief tip, or one strategy that they can use if they're just starting this, let's say this is kind of a new idea, that, seeing everybody as a light, And the other thing I do is I've literally gone into a room and just found something I like about every person in the room and
Yeah.
just made
Yeah.
myself do that, like made myself find
That's
something.
awesome.
If you, to do that, what would you say? What's the sort of, here's how you start?
Sure. I mean, there's so many examples of this. I want to first say in George Floyd Square, there are grandmothers, these women who have really taken over the mutual aid experience and the sacred community experience of George Floyd Square. They don't need police officers to keep the peace. People do that together, right? It's not, we know for certain that more police officers don't make people safer. More resources make people safer, right? There's less crime when everybody has what they need, right? And so that's just a fact. And so the idea of giving resources to people disarms them, right? And so to give, to bring, to come to a community experience like a George Floyd Square or any neighborhood that you walk in with resources to share. Like, this is what I want to give here. And you give what you can and you take what you need in this wonderful way. And the wonderful women who guide this square, and this is true of reservation work as well. When I was protesting line 3, the grandmothers would say so clearly, oh, by the way, I'm noticing your posture. You don't have to walk that way here. You can let your fear go. You're okay, you're safe here. And they would love you and care for you and offer you some food and say, and the women at the George Floyd Square do the same thing. They take a young person who's walking with so much fear and saying, you don't have to walk that way here. And you can just see the fear melt from their bodies, and they relax and they soak in that love. And what I find, this little nugget that I think people can hold on to is from Reverend Jackie Lewis, and she's the pastor at Middle Collegiate Church in New York City, just a huge soul force kind of person. And she was reminded of the definition of love, and I think this is, for me, a new practice that I've just taken on in the last month or so that has really centered me in my work. And it's love is defined as the non-possessive delight in the particularity of the other. So kind of soak that in, the non-possessive delight in the particularity of the other. So we don't love someone because of this or in spite of this, whether it's a disability or a color of their skin, but we love that thing fully, that particular thing of who they are, however they show up in the world and whatever their voice sounds like, or the shape of their cheek, or whatever it is, the non-possessive delight in the particularity of the other is a practice of not wanting to change anybody. Like I would only love you if you did this, or if I didn't feel so scared of you, in the anti-racism work. If you just came in with looking less like something, then I could open my heart. And what this does is say, you come as in whatever way you are, whether it's scared or wounded or whatever. And I'm going to love that in you. And that opens up this relationship. And so I think to hold on to that non-possessive delight, just the pleasure of being in one another's company, and that could be people, and it could be a tree, it could be a fence post, the non-possessive delight in the particularity of the other. And I also want to say all this work we do starts with looking in the mirror and doing it with yourself. You gotta fill up your own bucket of self-worth and self-love, and then you can go out in the world. And the inner work is so, so important before we do anything out in the world and make a difference out there. And so, and it's an ongoing journey, and there are days my bucket of self-love and self-worth are full and overflowing. And there are days when it's not, and I and recognize what that is, and kind of go back to that experience, and be around people like, my beautiful friend Lori, who helps me fill up my bucket, right? So that's just essential.
So that is beautiful. And it fits so perfectly with who we are here at Inclusivity Podcast, what we try to spread on Inclusivity Collaborative, what Black Iowa News and Alliance for Sustainability are trying to put out into the world, that idea of love yourself, like take care of yourself, fill your bucket, make sure that you are respecting yourself, and then look at other people. And I love that what is it? I love
Non-possessive delight in the
non-possessive
particularity of the other.
in the particularity of the other. I love that. So that's what we want you to go away with today. We will be back again next week with another podcast, and we'll have another wonderful guest, or it may actually be interviewing me next week. So I may be in the hot seat next week. But remember that to take care of the earth, to take care of the people, other people here, you have to take care of yourself, and that it all matters, that the only way we're going to have a future is if we protect the earth and each other. And that means equity, that means everybody's rights. So thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you again. Thank you so much, T. Michael.